Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be looking at the top 20 skins that actually buff your champion. So I'm kind of rating these on if they have a game impact, if they bring any sort of quality of life, like it just feels better to use it, or if they are actually harder to play against. So skins have always been a really big part of League of Legends. It might just be to show off that champion you're using is your main and you should be feared, or it's a seasonal skin and you want to celebrate a holiday, or maybe your favorite team just won Worlds and you want to really be part of it. But certain skins can actually provide an advantage. Now, huge disclaimer, none of these are game breaking, and the advantage might just be the slightest thing you've ever seen in your life, but I think a lot of these are super interesting. So at number 20 we have Zombie Brand, which is actually harder to play against. He has a distinct walking animation, and when he's walking towards enemy champions, he sort of mimics the starting animation of casting his own W. Why is it harder to play against? Well, Brand is normally played as a support now, and this little buff that this skin gives is the most prevalent in laning phase. Being a harass heavy champion, Brand can continuously pressure the enemy marksman and support by kind of simply walking up to them, and especially maybe out of a bush, it can scare them and catch them off guard and thinking he's about to cast his W when he's basically kind of trolling them. Moving from there at number 19, we have Battle Boss MALZAHAR, which is also harder to play against. His E and W are harder to track and less noticeable if you're affected by it. So it's basically a lot harder in team fights because normally a casual or even competitive player in a hectic team fight might not notice little things like being ignited. And in a scenario where everything is bunched up together and it's hard to visually distinct things, barely being able to notice MALZAHAR's E and W can kind of get a little bit annoying. At number 18 we have ELDERWOOD Bard, thanks to his Q particle being more narrow than his actual hitbox, so it makes it a ton harder to sidestep or dodge when the entire hitbox is kind of miscalculated by the visual, and this in general is a little bit of an annoying trend with skins. When they get caught up in trying to make them look super cool, it doesn't always mimic the original hitbox. Moving on to number 17, we have Infernal SHEN, which is harder to play against. The size of his shield from his ult appears smaller, and the sound is actually harder to hear during a team fight or an intense skirmish. So this is particularly going to affect some of mid and jungle skirmishes, or maybe dragon team fights when there's a lot of sound cues going on. Now obviously this is a little bit more of a slim one, but nonetheless technically something like a 0.001% buff and a little bit annoying to play against. At number 16, we have Vandal GRAGAS, which, I'm kind of repeating myself, a little bit harder to play against. So during the W auto attack animation, it masks the alt animation perfectly that could catch enemies off guard. It could be used as an engagement by charging you W first and then body slam onto an enemy, then auto attack while throwing your ultimate. But as GRAGAS mains would know, you can always cast your ultimate right after you body slam, and while the enemy is flying off, you can still hit them with your empowered W auto attack. This actually has a lot of potential, and was thinking of putting it higher on the list, but with the limited scenarios of which you would use this combo, I think number 16 fits its spot pretty well. From there at number 15, we have Challenger Ahri, in which her Q animation and hitbox appear smaller than what it actually is, though in this case, the middle orb is actually very rough in coloration, while the outer edges are very transparent. However, those transparent outer edges can still be clipping enemies, and it can be super annoying to sidestep a Challenger Ahri Q. At number 14, we have Infernal Diana, which, you know, the third hit passive AoE auto attack is just a lot harder to see on this skin. On her original skin it can be a little bit tricky because she already glows very bright red, but at least it's a little bit easier to see because on this skin it all just blends in together, and it could lead to some unfortunate trades in the mid lane if you don't notice that her auto attack proc is up. At number 13, we have Elementalist Lux. So her auto attack animations actually resemble the Q and E casting. The Q is also harder to deal with since it appears slower than it actually is. And on top of all that, we have various different particles thanks to the different elements within the skin, which can just be a little bit distracting. At number 12, we're actually switching it up. These skins just add a little bit of a quality of life. So number 12, Battle Academia JAYCE. Honestly, there's no denying it's just smoother and feels a lot better animation-wise. By having a smoother animation when auto-attacking, you can better last hit and merge your combos with your auto-attack that would maximize your use on the champion. And the Q and E combo being easier to cast would all feel a lot more fluid. And like I said, it's not exactly a buff, but I'm calling it quality of life. When it feels better to play, I always feel you do play better. At number 11, we also have Mecha Kha'Zix. On the normal skin, isolated targets are shown by a dark purple outline around the champion, but on Mecha Kha'Zix, it shows a much more clear isolation animation, and the sound cue helps Kha'Zix player identify their targets a little bit easier. Again, more so quality of life, but I love to see it. At number 10, we have Ashen Lord Aurelion Sol. So on Aurelion Sol's original skin, his orbiting stars are a little bit transparent and harder to track, but on Ashen Lord, his stars shine really bright. I mean, they're literally orange, and they're just overall easier to keep track of, especially in chaotic team fights where you need to make sure you're hitting those stars. I find it, at least personally, easier to see the orbs when they're glowing very bright for me. At number 9, we have Black Frost and Nivea, and this one has a few things. So she has smoother auto attack animations, which is quality of life, but her abilities also blend in with the river, so having team fights around there is a little bit of a hellstorm. Her ultimate is also harder to tell when it's being casted thanks to her animation. At number 8, we have Star Guardian Ahri, and, well, the ult spire that goes off when there is an enemy champion nearby is very similar to the charm animation and projectile color that is often actually mistaken for a charm coming your way. This one I've actually heard about in forums, and I've gotta agree, it can be a little bit confusing. From there, at number 7, we have Arctic Ops GRAGAS. Another GRAGAS. I hate to say it. The grayish color of his ultimate is just harder to see during cast, especially in team fights. I mean, it is a very dim color compared to all his other skins, and it can be kind of hard to notice when it's going off until it's a little bit too late. At number 6, we have ARCLIGHT VARUS. So the ultimate is actually a lot harder to see. It is significantly more transparent than his other skins, and that ultimate already moves quite fast. So yeah, not too much explaining, it's just harder to see. At number 5, we have Project Ashe. Her ultimate enchanted crystal arrow literally appears way smaller than the actual hitbox. This one, I swear I've seen someone post a clip, I'm not too sure, it was a while ago when the skin first came out, where the arrow actually clipped them and it looked like nothing hit them at all. So yeah, the hitbox doesn't exactly match the arrow that's coming your way. At number 4, we have Pulsefire TF, and he actually has a few things. So his W remains visible, other abilities however are harder to dodge and identify. His Q is small, and actually a lot smaller than his actual hitbox. And his stacked deck has a different animation that surrounds a cybernetic circle around him, and it's just harder to know if his stacked deck is ready or not compared to his other skins. The W cycling on the cards are all shown at the same time opposed to other skins which only cycles one at a time. So in my opinion, this is one of the bigger ones, and I feel that, you know, again, none of these are really game breaking or anything, but if we're gonna talk about small buffs, this is like a 0.03% buff. It's still there. At number 3, we have Steel Legion Lux. Both Q and E animations are transparent and can be harder to see. So Lux is kind of already pretty annoying to deal with, and her long range pokes and snares can be tricky to dodge if you're not used to it, so any sort of visual help is really necessary. Anything transparent is a no-go for me, and to be honest, her original like abilities are already a little bit too transparent, so Steel Legion Lux just makes it worse. And number 2, we have Dark Waters Vladimir. The casting animation as well as the debuff on his ult is very hard to see, and in a hectic team fight, it's almost impossible. Actually, this one really does have an effect, because when he ults a ton of people, or maybe just clips your ADC, if they don't notice that they have the debuff on them, or they don't notice that the ult hit them, they might pop before popping their own heal when it's too late. Last but very much not least, and number 1, we have Elderwood Ahri. So all of the particles in her abilities match the color and animation of her taunt, which gives enemies a hard time distinguishing what ability she's actually going to use or what she's using on the spot. So honestly, we put Elderwood Ahri at the top spot, not because she has a visual buff to her ultimate, but even just her charm. Her charm is just a lot harder to see, and that thing can be game changing. So yeah, another hard to see skin, not gonna lie there. But that wraps it up for today's video. That is our top 20 skins that buff your champion. Now again, I said this at the beginning, none of these are super game breaking. I mean, Riot has banned skins before, but for the most part it is minuscule, and that is obvious. We're not saying that, you know, by buying Elderwood Ahri you're gonna be hitting Challenger tomorrow. That's just not gonna happen. It's not gonna even, you know, it's not even gonna it might secure you 1 kill every 10 games, maybe. You know what I mean? That's how small it is. But with that being said, I still think it was an interesting video. Hopefully you guys did enjoy the content. If you did, consider hitting that like button, maybe even subscribing, but most importantly, leave any feedback you have in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.